All right, I just turned the broadcast on, so here in a minute or two we can do a audio check. Johanna, once we get started, you're going to mute, right?
Yes.
Hey, we may have a few people on a little early, just getting things set up. If anybody could put into the question section an audio check that everything's coming through and it sounds pretty good. Great, we got an audio check, so hopefully everybody will be able to hear us, but we at least got a number of people that said everything sounds good, so we'll be ready to start at 11 o'clock Eastern time. All right. Johanna, are we going to be ready to start here at 11 o'clock?
Yep, we should be ready to go pretty soon. Getting people still rolling in.
Hopefully this doesn't happen during the webinar, but it just like literally just hung up on me. So if it hangs up, I'm going to just switch over to computer audio. But it just was like, no thanks, I'm going to hang up.
If it hangs up, Whitney will be doing an impression of you.
Oh, that's fine.
It'll be a good one, Brian.
I think I'd prefer that.
At least there's not going to be a thunderstorm in the middle of it like it Matt's yesterday. All right, Johanna, are we ready to go?
Yep. And I think we will get started as people kind of finish coming in. A couple of really quick notes just to keep things running smoothly today. Everyone on the call is muted throughout the session. These are big calls, so we just want to make sure that we're able to get through content. We do still encourage you guys to ask questions, though. There's just a little questions module on your GoToWebinar panel. If you put anything in there, we'll try to answer them throughout the session and then hold any questions that are really good for the group for either the end of the session or at another time during the symposium. The session is going to be recorded, and we'll share both the recording and Brian's presentation publicly after the symposium ends, so you don't need to take too many notes. Brian is our VP of Sales and the resident disc golf expert here. Today's quick hits presentation is the 2020 version of a presentation that he's done every year, I think since 2016. Reviews the most often overlooked settings and features on the system, and it's lucky that we put out technology pretty fast, because otherwise this would get boring. But every year we find ourselves with a longer and longer presentation, and I think there's a little bit of something for everyone. Brian?
Yes, thanks, Johanna. So this year I've been afforded more time to drone on, so I hope all of you get to look forward to that. I miss being able to put more jokes out and make fun of Bob, but hopefully we can make up for it in some sort of levity in some way. So we do have a little bit more time today. So if you guys come across questions that you'd like to have discussed, we'll put them into the question section. Both Johanna and Whitney are monitoring the question section, and we've actually got some time allotted for that. So I kind of look forward to you guys putting in some questions at the end, and we can go through those. I've got a number of slides to go through, but I think I'm going to be able to get through that and still have plenty of time for questions. So today we're going to take a look at our agenda. It's a little bit different this year than maybe some of my other presentations in the past. So we're going to talk about going virtual. Obviously, big discussion right now, but we're going to talk a little bit about some of the settings and some of the things that maybe you can do that you didn't realize. We're going to talk about challenges. They've been extremely successful so far this year, and kind of a new wave for us to interact with our participants. We're going to talk about actual live races with social distancing and some of the tools that we have. Communication with participants, flexible websites, which we've had around a couple of years, and we're really seeing uptick with that now. How to raise more if you're a nonprofit or if you work with nonprofits, and what can you do from a marketing standpoint if you have a $0 budget or a limited budget. So going virtual, we want to talk about optimizing your race registration if you're going to go virtual. So let's take a look at some of those settings. So the first thing is under Race Day Tools, Enhanced Virtual Raise, and Set Up Virtual Raise. So the first thing I want to point out, since this is the first slide, there is a specific path that we're noting, and that's at the very top of the page. It says Race Day Tools, Enhanced Virtual Raise, and Set Up Virtual. What that is that's the actual place within the RunSignup system that you would go to configure some of these settings. So that's the reason we put that at the top. So that if you're looking at this deck later, you can say, hey, if I go to Race Day Tools, Enhanced Virtual Race, and Set Up Virtual Race, I can actually see how to configure this. So the first thing is within our virtual race tools is we've started the process of making it very easy for participants to be able to submit results. So you'll see on the left-hand side, it says participant tracking. Allison Bickle looked herself up. So now she can look up her registration, and then she can input a time, or she can also indicate that she finished the run but did not have a time. The next thing is that you can actually see the results here. So you can see the settings underneath here that says allow participants to indicate that they've completed the run but not actually provide a time. So for many of our nonprofit events, maybe that's something that is pretty interesting to them, is the ability to say, hey, we just want people to be able to say that they've participated, not necessarily that they ran their best race ever. And you can notice that Bob obviously didn't want to put in his time. He's probably a little embarrassed about taking 3 hours to finish the Scott Coffee race this year.
2:45, Brian.
Okay. Well, everybody's striving for something, Bob. So the other thing that's really nice, and we learned this through pain, is that not everybody knows their login to RunSignup like we do. So what we have done is made it so that you can log in with two very simple ways. One is, do you know your email address? Or two is, do you know the last 4 digits of the telephone number that you used to log in when you signed up for the event? And this allows people to submit their results without having to actually log into their account. And the reason we said we learned this through pain is that RunSignup info at team has been doing a tremendous job of handling just the volume of emails that we're getting from participants and organizers like yourselves. And this is one of the changes that they begged for and we put in to try to make it easier for people to be able to submit their results. So free text results. So this is something at the beginning of this process has become extremely popular. I still think this is a really good idea, is that during the process of signing up for the event, a participant can sign up to get a text and or an email notification to remind them that it's time for the virtual results. Because we don't have the actual race day any longer and all the festivities and things like that. So the text message can then come in and remind someone that today is race day or tomorrow is race day and here's where to submit your results. So these are great ways for participants to be able to get reminded about that process and get directed to where they should submit their results. So digital bibs, this is something that is new to our platform. You know, in the past, everyone would order bibs from whatever their favorite bibs company was, and they could do all this styling and have a beautiful bib that they gave to their participants. Now with digital bibs, it is more of a challenge to actually mail out the bibs. Now we're using kind of more of a design template that we put out. So you can either use one of our templates or create your own design. On the right-hand side, we've got Fleet Feet Sports, who did on kind of a replacement for their big run. They went to the My Big Run virtual race this year, and you can see how they've got a very elegant, simple design that shows off Brooks, who was their primary partner there. And you can also see on the bottom there, and we'll actually look at this on the next slide, some of the customizations that you can do within the digital bib. You can add the participant's name, bib number, race logo, race name, event name, and now we even support groups and teams name, and then finally custom text. So between the combination of your template, which is kind of your color scheme, as well as some of these drop-in components, you can really have a nice looking digital bib. So giveaway descriptions. Giveaways has also changed quite a bit with many of our events going virtual. And one of our customers requested this box called additional details for giveaways. And this is something that if you haven't used it, don't worry, it hasn't been here that long, as many things, these are very recent developments. But I want to highlight this as something that will save you effort. Is if you use the additional details box, you can do an explanation of when participants should expect their items. So register by blank date. So in this case, we'll just read what it says. It says register by May 15th to guarantee your shirt by race week. And pickup will be at the Moorestown Running Company. Details will be emailed out the 1st of June. Shipping is also available for a fee. So however you're handling your t-shirts or other goodies that are going to be shipped out, you can then plug that into the additional details so that participants, when they're registering as well as in their confirmation email, this is being reinforced when they should be expecting the items, because essentially what this customer shared with us is that their #1 customer support email has been, when am I going to get my goodies? So shipping address. So again, this is another tool that is being used because of some of the changes in our industry. So we are directly integrated with the U.S. Postal Service API, and we are validating that this is a real address. And there's different options within our shipping capabilities where you can only ask, what we're highlighting here is only ask for shipping address during the registration for particular events. You can also make it so that events are requiring a valid United States shipping address or suggest standard U.S. shipping address. And the idea behind this is to try to prevent bad addresses or returned addresses and things like that. Also, for some events that have found if you have international participants, it can actually be kind of expensive to ship things to certain parts of the world. It's also very slow. So you want to be careful about, setting expectations and how, someone might be getting those items more in a delayed fashion than you would like. One other thing to highlight is that we are coming out with international shipping and shipping software integration coming next. So hopefully in the relatively near future, we'll have both those items out. So for the races that are handling international participants, they'll have some better tools for that. So one of the other things that's been around a while, and more people are putting effort into it because, again, we're trying to highlight digital assets now, is you can either use one of our templates for finisher certificates, or you can use the same template potentially that you use for your digital bib and have a digital finisher certificate. So we highlighted one here on the right-hand side. They've got their own custom header. They've got their own hashtags built into here as well as their website. So these are things that you can play around with, and it's a great idea to go ahead and build these finisher certificates out. Make sure you register for your event and make sure that you submit a result. So actually go through the entire process of registering, submitting a virtual result, and looking at your finisher certificate and your digital bib to make sure you, as a participant, check it out on your phone, check it out on your desktop to make sure that you can see what your actual customer would experience. So virtual challenges, this is something that I've been heavily involved with from the beginning, and I see a lot of potential from this. I think a lot of people think that this is just kind of a one-time possibility, but I think this is a long-term part of our business, is that challenges and some of the things that we've built, I think there's going to be great ways for you to be able to engage participants on an ongoing basis. So what we have within the, this is within the enhanced virtual race capabilities, is now you can actually set up activity types. So the difference between a challenge and a virtual race is that the person is engaging with you for multiple days. Many times it's 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, 90 days. You can kind of define how long that's going to be going on. You can also define different types of activities. Some of our challenges right now are primarily walks, runs, rides, or swims, but I truly see great potential with pull-ups, push-ups, planks, yoga, reading books. I think the opportunities are endless and a lot of fun, because this allows you to create an extended engagement with your supporters or your participants. And especially like if you look at this into the future, saying in the wintertime, if that's typically your off season and you don't have much actual interaction because you don't put any races on in the wintertime, you can have some sort of activity to keep people motivated. You can also then have competition a little bit, as well as custom swag that meets kind of that competitive desire during the off season, so to speak. So let's go on to the next thing that shows one of the updates that we made after we got the initial software out, is that we now support the ability for you to import a KML file. So a KML file is a specific type of file that Google Map Creator or Map My Run or other mapping tools, you can actually create a route, upload the route as a KML file into our system, and then that allows participants to digitally travel along that route. So you can see on the right-hand side here, we've got Marlise Bickle competing in the Garden State Parkway Challenge, and you can kind of see where you are along there. One of my favorite things to do is you can kind of see in the bottom right-hand corner here, it's a little difficult to see, but this is a true Google Maps integration. You can actually take the little yellow icon and plop it down on your icon, and you actually can see where you are along the route, even if you aren't traveling obviously there. And I really like doing that, because you end up seeing funny things sometimes, because it's just the Google Map route that whenever the truck was driving through that area. So some of the neat things that you can do within challenges now is we actually have a data type now for challenges. And so this allows you to do some really interesting things right on your homepage in terms of like trying to create community and showing like how the power of the group might be. So I want to flip ahead to the next slide, because I really, really like what American Cancer Society has been doing. So they have the virtual determination runs the country. So this is a data component driven by RunSignup's database. And you can see on the left-hand side, it says virtual challenge. And then on the right-hand side, you can see they've completed 11,347 miles. And their goal was to go 2,900 miles. And they're going back and forth from California to Virginia, back and forth across the country. And they hit their goal 4 times. So there's lots of different ways to approach this. You can, do a trip to around the world. How many times can we go around the world? Or you can go to Mars. There's all sorts of things you can do, and it really depends on how many people you expect in the challenge of how large of a goal are you trying to make, or are you trying to make it more of a shorter goal, like how many times can we go around the state of Wisconsin or something like that. again, the beauty of this is it's all being driven by the data input by the participants into the RunSignup challenge software. So there's no coding involved at all from your standpoint. It's just plugging in this data-driven component. We also wanted to highlight we're working hard to put new software out that improves the experience for the participant. The first weekend we put this out, we got lots and lots of feedback that this was too difficult to do, and so we've made, you know, as I talked about earlier, the ability to log mileage without having to necessarily log into your account or just use your last four digits of your telephone number. We're making it very easy for people to make comments or put emojis in, and then also put their distance in and put dates in, and they can even backlog activity because sometimes people will forget to do it for a few days. You can kind of see on the right-hand side that we're giving people kind of a high five, a double high five, that your activity's been saved. So again, reinforcing that they've actually completed this. And this may be very hard to see, but it says for June 22nd, cycled across the bridge with a little cycling emoji. So little tiny things that our user experience team is trying to make this a positive and fun experience for your participants. One of the latest developments that we have, and this one is going to be more for your advanced participants, is the ability to import a GPX or FIT file. So if you want to have a part of your challenge that is more for the competitive athlete, we've got some really cool challenges going on with elevation. And the people that understand, you know, how you would measure elevation are typically going to be your Strava or Map My Ride users that really understand how to interact with the Strava or Map My Ride interface, and they can actually export the GPX file. So let's say they go out and ride for 3 hours, and it will include in that GPX file the time, the distance, and the elevation. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for the general, hey, I'm trying to get as many people as possible out. This is more for those competitive challenges you can have and say, hey, I actually want you to import these GPX files. And this also may be one of those situations where you want to have a required approval from the race director to be able to see the results that are being inputted and approve them before they go up on the site. Another innovation that we have is team results. We've got more and more events that are doing teams. Many of our events in live events are successful, whether it's just, hey, everybody signs up as a team, or it's an actual relay. So now we've enabled this for team challenges. By no means are we done with this. It's just we got something out the door, and so now teams can actually see their aggregate time. So what we're highlighting here on the right-hand side is this is an elevation challenge. So Team Quicksilver has 246 miles, and they've gained an amazing 62,835 feet. So you do have to have teams set up for the actual registration event that people are registering for in order for this to work. There also is still an individual component to the results, but just know we still have more user interface updates to come to clean up the team results, but we wanted to get the aggregated results out the door as quickly as possible. So now it's out. We've got actual team competitions where people can see, you know, what team is in the lead, second, third, etc. So here's an example of if you actually drill into a team page, you can see the members on the team and the total mileage for each team member. One of the things that Challenges has pressed us on, and many of our customers are now starting to learn, is that the RunSignup results platform has some default settings that you may not like for the type of challenge that you're putting on. And there's a little pencil edit button that you can click on the results page of your event, and allows you to actually pick the columns that you want to show on that page. So this is an example where it's a book reading competition. And in a book reading competition, we don't need bib numbers, we don't need gender, we could get rid of country, for example. We don't need clock time or chip time or any of these other things. We could get rid of age, etc., and really clean that interface up. You also can drag and drop the column. So if you wanted the number of books to be the third column instead of the fifth column, you can move all those types of things around easily within the drag and drop interface. So now let's start talking about some of the tools that we have for real races with social distancing, and let me take a sip of water. Okay, so when you're setting up an event in RunSignup, one of the most common questions we get is, okay, so how do I actually have an event where someone could register for the actual live race and have a virtual race? So what you're going to do when you're setting up an event is you're actually going to set up an event called 5K. I'm not sure if you want to say in person, that might be helpful. And the type of event would be run or run or walk. And then you're going to add another event called virtual 5K. And you'd say, well, why would I need to do that? Well, in general, the reason you would do that is because in the virtual 5K, maybe people are getting their items shipped. They're obviously going to be likely submitting their own results. And so you can have two separate sets of results or two combined sets of results. That's something you can decide for yourself. But likely the registration path for the virtual 5K might be slightly different than the in-person 5K. One of the other things that as we get further and further into live events happening in the future is, let's say I sign up for the virtual 5K. You can turn on event transfer. So up until a certain date, if I decided that I wanted to transfer to the in-person event because I felt comfortable doing that, you can set it up so participants can manage their record up until a certain date. And if there is a cost difference between the two events, I would pay the difference between that. And then I can manage that. The race director does not have to totally manage that. And also on the flip side, if someone signs up for an in-person event and they don't feel comfortable and they'd like to transfer to the virtual race, again, you can manage those types of things. And if the virtual race has questions that the in-person race doesn't have or vice versa, those questions can be asked of the participant during this quote-unquote new registration path when they transfer. Some of the other things that are important, obviously having an emergency contact name and phone number is helpful, but also having sign-up text message updates for the race. So we have an emergency alert text message tool. This can be extremely helpful in some of these situations where you may want to send an update out the day of the race to let people know if, let's say, lots of people aren't necessarily following the recommendations about, making sure that let's say you're asking people to stay in their car until it's their corral wave, things like that. That can be a way to communicate with lots of people very quickly. So corrals, we have done an update to our corral system. It's been around a while, and now we have a much larger need for corrals. So to explain what corrals are, is that many major races have had corrals, and many times it's based off ability. So you have an elite wave, and you have wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, and the whole idea is to get participants of relatively similar abilities starting at the same time to have the course flow nicely. Well, now we're metering courses. So your race may have a time trial start where like every single person gets their own individual start time. Your race may have, hey, 10 people can start at 7 a.m. and then 10 people can start at 7:10, et cetera, et cetera. You can build these corrals into your race, and it's a registration question during the process of registering for the event. You can have different corrals for different events. So if you want to have larger corrals for your longer distance events and smaller corrals for your shorter distance events, or whatever you'd like to do, you can see some of these examples where you can build corrals by event type. We also have corral reports and estimators. And essentially what this is doing is it's showing you the size versus the inventory available for your corrals. So you can start to map out, like, do we have a bunch of participants signed up for the early wave and essentially no participants signed up for the later waves, or vice versa. Some of the other things that you may do as you get closer to events is that you may start customizing registration when you get to the race day. So on the day or the day before the event, you may use our fast registration, which this is saying between this date range, I'm going to skip these fields to quicken up the registration process for your participants. Because many of our events, and I'm going to kind of flip to our next slide here, are likely to go to no-touch race day registration. Some events may not even offer race day registration. It just depends. But our fast registration allows you to leave registration open. So it's credit card only. So no cash handling. The participants filling out all their information with a customized path based off those fast registration options. And you can also have a QR code for the registration. So someone just scans the QR code and it immediately takes them to the registration page for your event. And I'm going to flip to the next slide and pause here for a second. If you're unfamiliar with a QR code and how it works, at least on an iPhone, we're not 100% sure on Android. I believe it works similarly, is that you can open the phone camera, you can scan this image that's actually up on your screen right now and let the camera focus in on the QR code. It creates a little rectangle there, and it'll get a notification to actually take you to the RunSignup link that this particular QR code is going to. So if you've never done that before, highly recommend doing that. That's another way to do it. The other thing that can be helpful is if you don't like the QR code or you don't feel like that's the best solution for you, is talk about making signage of about what your race day registration policy is, and that if they Google your race name and you're using RunSignup, the RunSignup is highly likely to be the first return on Google, and then they can click right on it and register. So putting signs up, Google Scott Coffee 8K would immediately pull that right up for them. So communicating with participants, this has become a big deal because many of our races have had to make abrupt changes with very little notice. So we've all learned good and bad lessons on what's the best way to communicate with participants. So we're going to look at some of these different tools. So in middle of March, when everything kind of changed for us, we quickly put together, our development team did an excellent job putting out this postpone and cancellation tool. And this allows you guys to put a presence on your RunSignup page that communicates the options that you're offering to participants. So if we look at this particular example, they've put out, our event has been postponed, new date, TBD. Due to the coronavirus, we believe the safest course of action is to postpone our event. We regret the situation, appreciate your understanding, and here are your options. These options are all configurable by the race director. These are just examples, but we tried to build a set of examples that was pretty workable for most people. But if you don't like any of them, you can delete them all and set your own up. The best part about this is that it's a pop-up that shows up as soon as someone lands on the RunSignup page, and the participant can easily make selections, and there's reports on that. So if people want refunds, you've got a report of that. If people want to stay in the race, you've got a report on that. If they want to defer to next year, you've got a report on that. And what we have found is that this drastically reduces the number of people that need to interact with the race director or RunSignup in order to make changes. This puts a lot more in control for the race director to be able to say, okay, here's the 400 people that want a refund. Here's the 800 people that want to stay in the race for next year. So many of our customers are using more and more of our email marketing tools, which we love. This allows you to drop in some of our replacement tags. So replacement tags are, the best way to explain them would be something like mail merge. If you've been around and used Excel for a long time, mail merge is a super popular tool. This allows you to pull information from the RunSignup database. And if you look at this list, and this is not a complete list, you can pull in their registration URL, the referral URL. We're highlighting in particular the digital bib. So that beautiful digital bib you built, you can plug that right into the email marketing platform. If you've got a finisher certificate URL, you can plug that right into that. And so what this allows you to do is to build a pre-race email that highlights the digital bib and a post-race email that highlights the finisher certificate. And the other thing that I think is underutilized by many customers is scheduling emails. And so we're going to look at some of these additional tools on the emails, but you can do all of this work on Monday and schedule the email to go out at Friday at noon, and then also the post-race email to go out at 2 o'clock on Saturday. So what we're actually looking at here is a scheduled pre-race email. And so this is the idea on this one is that this is an in-person event. This email has actually got our QR code in there. So if the participant is showing up, the QR code could be scanned. So again, trying to get away from touch, the QR code would actually pull up that participant, and then they could be checked in and a bib could be assigned to them. This is also pointing out some of the race day instructions that you might have to explain to your participants and make sure that they are on the same page as you. Flexible websites. One of the things that we've been very happy about is that more and more of our customers are embracing RunSignup as their website platform. That was our goal the whole time, was it's free, it's flexible, and we've been continually making it better over time. So we've seen a number of very successful campaigns, and their website is the actual RunSignup platform. They've actually mapped their domain to RunSignup. So that's the first thing is that you can see, if you want to try an example, if you go to scottcoffeerun.com, that's Bob's hometown race. That race, the entire website, everything about it is powered by the RunSignup system. If you own a domain currently and you want RunSignup to be your website, you can actually go through the process of mapping your domain to the RunSignup server so that we are not only your host, but also your content provider. And part of the reason that we've been pushing more people to do this is some of the cover page updates that we've made that allow you to have a tremendous website without a lot of technical skills. So this is one of our demo races that we use. It's the Vancouver Trail Run. You can see on the right-hand side here how you've got more info, become a sponsor, volunteer. You've got content blocks here. You've got a video on here. All this can be done by just about anybody. I mean, if you know how to log into RunSignup and get to the cover page, there's no particular special talent to that. Here's a couple examples from customers who have used the cover page examples. I really, really like this Liberty Road challenge. I think it looks fantastic. They're using some of the color overlays on the individual and team challenges to highlight some of the images that they have there, and I really think this just pops. And from a scalability and time speed to market, it's hard to beat this. You can build a website, you can buy a domain and build a website in 2 or 3 hours, and that's hard to beat. So drilling into some of the specifics of cover pages, the first thing is that you can see the drop down. These are the different options that you have within the cover page. So you can go full width, 2 columns, countdown clocks, custom actions. We're going to look at some of these as well, but this is showing you specifically what the 2 columns look like. And to me, this looks extremely professional and attractive. The countdown clock, this is something that a lot of the challenges are using, and even some of our larger races is like, when is the race? And this is an automated countdown clock to when your race is happening. Again, no special coding needed. So custom actions, these are going to be buttons that you're building into your cover page to try to drive an action. So do you want to become a sponsor? Do you want to volunteer? Do you want more information? And you can use these in infinite ways. We're not really defining how they can be used. One of my personal favorites is the video. I think as an industry, we need to use video more and more. YouTube is the #2 search engine in the world now. And so if you're building videos, make sure that you're building videos that are, 1, you can plug into your page, but then 2, it's not talked about enough, but YouTube is a tremendous social platform that if you can get your video out there, people will start watching it and potentially commenting on it or sharing with others. It's something they might want to do. Or you can also just put a presence from a visual standpoint of your race, because I know we've all used photos in the past, but video is becoming a much bigger component. And I love the way that videos sit on our cover page. It's an embedded look, and as soon as they hit play, they can watch the video. So these are some of our data-driven components. For our fundraiser events, you can see you can drop in this data-driven component of your top individual and top team fundraisers, and people can click on those individuals or teams and make a donation directly to them. This is a new one. I really like this one because up until the past few months, one of the #1 drivers of revenue for races and for RunSignup was the first day and the last day of the month were extremely busy days from a number of registrations. And you can line up your next price increase right onto your RunSignup website by enabling this. So you can see, hurry up, the price is going up. 10-mile trail run, next price increase is Wednesday, July 1st, 2020, and then a register now with the current price in there. So I really like that because it is, if you manage 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 events, it's very hard to keep all of those websites up to date with price increases. I can't tell you how many websites I've come across that have price increases, but they're not highlighted on the website. So that is your main driver of getting people to register today versus waiting till tomorrow, and make sure you're highlighting that. And then the final component, and we mentioned this a little bit earlier with the American Cancer Challenge, is the virtual challenge. So you can see laps around the mountain. We've completed 13 miles. We've got a goal of 1,000 miles. We've got 987 miles to go. And then it's got a little icon bar down here at the bottom that's showing us how far we've moved along at least one lap. Some of the other things that we would recommend, and many of our larger customers have started doing this, and this is to help your participants, is make sure that you add a frequently asked questions. If you look through your inbox of your event, what are your top 10, top 15, if you're even a larger event, what are the questions that you're getting? And then find in the RunSignup help documentation, which we've tried to do a great job of keeping up to date, we likely have pre-written step-by-step and or a video explaining how a participant can accomplish that. So there's two reasons to have that. One is this makes it easy for you and your team to be able to respond to participants in the inbox, but then two, you can also drive people to your website with the correct documentation on how to accomplish like resending their confirmation email with a really common question. So use all the content that we're building in your website to try to take work off you and your team. So talking a little bit about donations and fundraising, many nonprofits right now have been impacted because a lot of nonprofits, a decent chunk of their revenue comes from road races or walks and bike rides and things like that that have had to be canceled or postponed this year. So we want to talk about some of the features that we have specifically for that. One of the things we're very proud about, and we were extremely happy that Facebook has allowed us to be part of their Facebook fundraiser capability, is now I can set up an individual fundraising page and connect a Facebook page to that. So whether I get a donation through Facebook or get a donation through the RunSignup system, the goals are synced. And that's a tremendous asset for the participants. So if they prefer to use the RunSignup link, they have it. If they prefer to use Facebook, they can have it. And the goals are automatically synced. The only thing for the nonprofit is that you're getting two revenue streams. One is going through the Facebook giving platform, and the other is coming from RunSignup, but that's not too bad. We've also made some updates to try to help it make it a little bit easier to reconcile those two. Another option that not a lot of people know, and this is something that we got a bunch of requests for, and we've finally been able to implement it, is fundraising minimums. So if I agree to fundraise $600 and I've had $500 in donations, you can send me some reminders, but at a certain point, I need to actually fulfill that goal of $600. Let's say I'm getting an entry to the Chicago Marathon, and that part of that is having to hit $600. You can set some rules, and then we can automatically charge that card after a certain date, and you can notify them a certain number of times that they have not hit their fundraising goal. And our system will try to remind the participant if the card is invalid or does not go through to let them know, hey, we attempted to charge your card and it failed, and then you can send them an invoice and try to customize that notification as well. So one of the other neat options that we have is that many of our fundraising events that are extremely successful are team-based, but maybe in your wording for your event, you have a different naming, like a crew or something like that. You can change the wording within the system from team to something else that you might prefer. So some of our turkey trots have really, and our for-profit events have had a lot of success with going to having charities as a checkbox add-on. So what happens is when you get to the checkout page of actually completing the process of making your transaction, there's a simple checkbox that says add a $10 donation to support Lifeline of Ohio, as an example. And I actually was talking to a turkey trot yesterday, and they saw a significant increase in donations by adding a $5 checkbox instead of really pushing the donation and fundraising piece. They found they actually increased donations with this simple checkbox, because at this point the person is inputting their credit card, and all they have to do is check the box and add to their cart, and they check out. And typically what we recommend is a smaller amount of money, $5, $10, something like that. And you could make it something, some meaningful number to you if you wanted to have some different number. But again, keeping it maybe $10 and less is going to make this pretty effective. Another option that is not well known is donation discounts. So if I register for an event and I donate, let's say $100, you can give me a discount on my registration during that process. One of the things that's really helpful for nonprofits to know is that part of the CARES Act this year is that any person at any income level can actually donate $300 this year and take that off of their income directly. So that's something I mentioned to a bunch of nonprofits as, you know, you get closer to the end of the year, maybe people don't realize like, hey, I actually can make a donation and have that come off their taxes as well. So one of the other cool options that we have now is the ability to type in or import donations to fundraisers. And this is under our donations and manual donations. So if someone mails you a check, you guys can input this and keep the fundraiser goals all up to date. Obviously, this isn't necessarily ideal because it creates work on your part, but you can keep the fundraiser engaged because let's say one of their family members sent a $500 check. They obviously want that represented on their fundraising page. And you can pick the individual or team fundraising page to apply it to. So marketing, quite a bit has changed here on marketing, and we're going to dig into some of that. The first thing is that we mentioned this back in January. We came out with our email capture tool. So this is either if I try to abandon the page or after 30 seconds of sitting on your page, you can try to grab my email address. I have, post-pandemic, I have not seen as much effectiveness of this tool. I think we're going to take a look at maybe there's different ways to position this. It looks really good. I had it turned on for one of my events and I didn't capture any email addresses, and I've talked to some other customers and seen similar things. So I'm going to try to talk to the team about is there anything that we could do to maybe make this more appealing, or is there a different strategy? Because I do know that this strategy works, but maybe it's just our implementation. Team rewards. So this is a really cool concept that I don't think gets enough play any longer because there's just new things and different ideas, is that you can set up teams to be a marketing program. So with Bob's Scott Coffee Race, one of the things that they do is if you get 20 or more members, you get free socks. And it's a great marketing tool, especially if you can get a sponsor that's willing to commit product and because they want to get their product out there. It really can be a no-cost marketing tool for you. What we're highlighting here in particular is the ability to automatically discount registrations after a certain level. So if you get 10 or more people, each member after that will pay $15 and the original registrations will get a refund. And this is all completely automated by RunSignup. You also can do team size competition. So if you get, again, talking about Bob's event, 20 or more people, you can offer that some sort of maybe physical reward or something like that. I think these things are great. Teams seem to work really, really well if they're well promoted. So it's just something to keep in your ideas, especially if you're looking for ways to differentiate your event. So we're going to talk a little bit about referrals. We have seen a resurgence in referrals, or numbers in referrals I've never seen before. We have actually had events that have nearly had 50% of their registrations coming from referrals, and these aren't 10-person events or just the Bickle family. This is the entire event, you know, with multi-thousand person events hitting 30, 40, 50% referrals. Why is that? I speculate to say that there's just more people engaging socially on Facebook than there typically has been in the past. And there's also just a very strong desire to create community. And also people just want to do stuff. And that's part of our role in the world, is to connect people and get people moving. And so that's what these events are hopefully doing, even if they're in a digital way. So my recommendation is to be extremely aggressive with your referrals. This is an example. So let's say this virtual 8K is $20. If you refer 5 people, you can get all your money back. If you're worried about cost, think about this on a cost standpoint. That is $5 a person if they refer all the people. In general, the feedback I've got from proactive Facebook ad campaigns is roughly $5 a person or more. So this is, and you only pay if someone hits that goal. Now, one of the things that I would recommend, this is how well it's going, is making sure you have incentives you can offer if somebody gets 10, 15, 20. I came across an event that had one full page of referrals with people with over 50 referrals. I've never seen that. The number one person had 110 referrals. So making sure that you are highlighting this on your page, we actually have a component that can show your top referrers, which is not an easy word to say, and having a competition for I actually have an event that is offering a bounty, $500 to the top referrer. These are the types of aggressive strategies that I would highly recommend because it will drive interest in your event. And don't worry about the cost because again, a lot of the people are going to do nothing. And if they only refer one person, they brought you a $20 registration, you paid nothing for it. So this goes into registration follow-up emails, and registration follow-up emails is our email system automatically sending an email to your participant after they've completed the registration process. So on the left-hand side, we're saying after 1 day at 8 a.m., 1 day after they register, send them an email, and then again at 7 days. And what we're doing on this right-hand side, the example email, is we're showing you the ways that they are trying to engage the participant. So they're thanking them for registering. They're promoting that they have a team competition and a team toolkit. They're promoting their social media. They're promoting their referral programs. These are the types of follow-up emails that you want to build and send to participants to try to get them to maybe forward that email to their buddy or their friend or their family member to try to get them involved with the event. And we can automate this process for you. So your primary goal is to get the content and the styling the way you like, spend less time on the styling and spend more time on the content. Even use our templates as part of what I would recommend, and really, really try to drive home that message. These little things add up. So don't neglect these types of things because they are a little tedious. Another part is email marketing white labeling. So something to keep in mind is that yes, RunSignup has the ability to send out emails, and we send a lot of emails out. But the larger your list becomes, the more important white labeling is. And the reason that we mention this is that essentially the email is coming from the RunSignup server. So if you have a 10, 15, 20,000 email list, it's important to set up white labeling. You can do simple white labeling or you can do full white labeling. We have a complete documentation on how to do this that I'm not going to go into specifically right now. But this allows you to actually send emails to the RunSignup system from your domain. Why is that important? Is because it's going to increase deliverability to your participants. So if we have 20,000 email addresses and there's a bunch of Comcast emails in there, Comcast says, why is RunSignup sending 8,000 emails to us today? Versus why is RunSignup, oh, it's not RunSignup, oh, it's the Malibu Marathon sending us an email. Okay, we'll let that through. So that's just something to keep in mind when you start getting larger lists. If you're a MailChimp customer, we do have a direct integration with MailChimp. You can actually go into the MailChimp integration. You'll need to make sure you have a list set up in MailChimp, and then you'll connect those two events to the correct list, or you could have each event going to separate lists if that's what you prefer. And then on an automated basis, it will move over the email addresses of participants who have registered into your MailChimp account. So this is an example of a highly stylized email. So we do support, and it's really hard to see on the screen, but there's it kind of looks like 4 arrows going out diagonally. This allows you to plug in source code. If you have an email designer that you work with or a designer you work with, they can actually build an email template and plug this in. I have a lot of people ask me about this. I always give people caution on this because there can be a lot of wasted time and money here potentially, in that you could build a wonderful email that looks great on your desktop. Go ahead and send it to your mobile and make sure it looks good on mobile. But within that, there's hundreds of different clients that are being used. And what I mean by clients is, like the Outlook app or the Apple Mail app or the Gmail app. And there's probably hundreds of others that people are using. And if you do enough testing, your email will look bad at some of them. And you kind of have to draw the line somewhere as to how many devices and types of apps am I trying to support and make my email look professional. So I personally recommend using our templates as much as possible unless you have a template that you know looks good for 90% of people. So sending emails, you can do a lot of little things within our email system. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but you have the ability to name the email, give it a subject line. Subject lines are actually super interesting. There's lots of interesting things that you can do with subject lines to try to drive open rates. I don't think that that's discussed as much. I've seen a lot of interesting subject lines in the past few months with people trying to create engagement or get people to open emails. Also, being able to plan your emails ahead of time. So you can actually schedule these emails months ahead of time. So if you have time now, you can build your emails out and schedule them to be sent. And one of the other neat tools is the ability to add and exclude current participants or specific events or past participants or specific lists. So this kind of is making sure that you're not duplicating or sending emails to specific groups of people. Like the virtual event participants might get a different email than your live participants. So those are the types of examples of like really simple segmentation that you can do right inside the email system. If you have multiple email templates, you can actually pick those email templates within our email system, and you can see it's important to label them so that you know which one is which, but then that allows you to have a stylized theme across all of your events. So if you're a partner with RunSignup, you can have maybe 1 or 5 different themes, templates that you can pick from to send out all of your emails and have the same theme across all of them. A neat option that I don't think is used quite enough is you can actually build a coupon code, which I'm sure almost everyone, if you've used RunSignup, has done at some point. But you also, at the bottom of the coupon code page, you can auto-apply coupons and build a URL. So if you're sending out an email, you could then plug in this link. And then if they click on that link, when they get to checkout, that 10% off is automatically applied at checkout. They don't even have to input the code. So I think it's a really neat way to, use the code, but also use technology to have a specific link for that promotion or discount. Social sharing. If you believe in the referral marketing and the amount of sharing that we have going on, which I am a big believer in right now, spend a little bit of time on that. So in our social sharing options, we allow you to specify the information that the person is sharing on Facebook, Twitter, or via email, as well as the image. So you can put in your own image. It specifies the size versus the large or the small size image. You can specify that you want the smaller image to be shared, as well as the description. And the description should have, it shouldn't be too much, but maybe just think of it like a subject line and a brief description of like why your event is cool and why someone should register, because this is what someone is automatically sharing when they go to share your event. So we also support Facebook and Google custom audiences. So if you're doing more targeted advertising, you can go into our system and download Facebook or Google custom audiences. If you're unfamiliar with these terms, these are customized lists from your database that you're using for targeted advertising. You also can do, and you can see this is highlighted on the screen here on the bottom, it says customer file with lifetime value. This allows you to also build lookalike lists. So if, let's say you have 10,000 people in your list, Facebook can analyze this and build a lookalike audience to try to do better targeting and help you grow your event with other people who would match the profile based off of the list that you loaded. Referral source tracking. We're seeing more and more people use this, which makes us very happy. So you can build a custom source link. So let's say you're partnering with another event to do a co-promotion, or another company to do a co-promotion, or a Facebook ad. You can generate a custom URL, give it a name, and also put in the amount of money you're spending on that campaign. And you can find out exactly how many page views that this signups, and transactions that this campaign has generated. The other thing that is extremely interesting about this is that within the RunSignup profile for the participant, so if you look here on the bottom left-hand corner, Emma J, actually we can identify the referral source. Where did Emma come from? And we're going to talk about this a little bit further in our CRM discussion, but I find this extremely powerful, because if I know that this person came from Facebook, in the future when I do future advertising, I'm going to maybe actually build lists of people who came from Facebook and advertise to them again that way. That doesn't mean I'm going to segment them from maybe email, but I can do maybe a more targeted campaign to those people who came from that particular referral source of Facebook. So I was mentioning on the previous that you can create lists within our CRM. So there's a bunch of different filters now that you can apply. So you can do simple filters like participants, fundraising, donors, or clubs. You can do additional, such as location, like zip code, radius, loyalty, how many times have they done your event. One of the ones that I was mentioning is the analytics, which is where did these participants come from to register? So I can then build out, one or multiple campaigns that are targeted based off their registration source. Also could do demographics such as age or gender to do specific campaigns based off of that. And once I build that list, I can download it as a CSV. I can download it as a Facebook custom audience, a Google custom audience, or export it to MailChimp. And the other thing to highlight is that you can have multiple lists. So you don't have to have just one list. You can have a bunch of different lists for different targeting purposes. So that is my presentation. I do have some additional slides that we pushed off, but I wanted to try to hit right around an hour to give us, that gives us about 30 minutes to take questions. And hopefully we've got some questions that'll come in, and either Whitney or Johanna will throw them up to me, and I'll do my best to try to answer those.
Yeah, we've been having quite a lot of questions come in. I think we've been answering stuff as we go along, but a lot of them are things that I think other people would, learn from hearing from as well. So Whitney's going to keep taking questions. If you guys have more, you can keep adding them in. But I'm going to start having Brian go through some of the ones that we've gotten. How do you charge an extra shipping fee?
So charging an extra shipping fee is typically it's handled through registration add-ons. So you can charge a shipping fee within registration add-ons. It gets a little complicated in that if you're charging a registration add-on, the only thing that I have a caution on is like if you truly don't know the weight of your item, and you need to make sure that you're having a discussion with whoever's doing the fulfillment, if it's yourself, is that you really truly need to understand what the items weigh. So because if it weighs too much, you can go from like, let's say it's $5 flat shipping with U.S. Postal Service to $8 because it's 3 grams over. So that's something to just keep in your mind, is that, you need to make sure you understand that, or your fulfillment company is giving you that explanation, so you're charging the appropriate amount. And then also make sure that, hey, am I giving someone the option to pick up their stuff, let's say at my local running store or at our packet pickup, even if they're doing the virtual event. So these are the types of things that within the registration add-on, you can have shipping, and then you can say pick up at, such and such running store, or ship to me for $5 or $7, whatever the fee is. The only thing that doesn't cover is, again, if you have international participants, you may have to have a separate registration event for them.
If you're setting up digital bibs and certificates, what's the best way to test how they look?
Yeah, so I love that question. Please test. That's the way to make RunSignup the happiest, is if we know that you've made an honest effort of testing it and you can't figure it out, we love to help you. I can't tell you how many times someone has not registered for their own event. And how would you know what they do? So the best way to test this is to actually register for your event. So set up a coupon code, make it your name, good for one use, 100% off, go through the registration process. And then when you finish registering, in the confirmation email, you'll see your digital bib. The only thing that is a little counterintuitive in terms of the results is that you would need to make sure in your virtual results that you have it set up to accept results today. So then you can go in and submit your result and see your finisher certificate. And then you may change that to say, hey, actually, after I've done this testing, I want to go ahead and change the results to start on July 1st or whatever day that you wanted it to. And you also can then go delete yourself out of the results records. But I think that is a fantastic thing to do, because all this stuff is new. And if you've done it, it creates confidence that it's not that hard to do. Anybody can do this. And you also will be able to support customers and say, hey, you just need to go here to do that.
Really quick before you do the next question, because we've gotten a lot of these come in, we will have the recording and all of the slides of this available for everyone. Those should be shared along with everything from all the sessions on Friday. So if you didn't catch all 90 slides of Brian's, you will have access to them later. Ryan, is there any plan to integrate with the API for Map My Run, Strava, et cetera, so that results are automatically imported into a RunSignup challenge?
Not right now. And I'll give you my reasons for that. Is that we will be supporting an API for challenges in the future. I don't have a specific date, but in the relatively near future. And if other companies, like another app, wants to do that integration, that's great. There's a bunch of reasons that you do not necessarily want to push those. One is that this is your challenge, and if you can get to the point where you have sponsors, like it's a bad business model to send people to Strava or to Map My Run to only use that and never go to your interface. It kind of defeats the purpose of us building the software and for you to kind of have an engagement. It actually is, and I'm currently doing a challenge myself, and so is Bob, and so is many other people in our company. It is really important that the person is going back to the RunSignup page and logging their activity, because I can then see what place I'm in, how my team is doing. I've sent some pretty mean messages to Whitney about, like, you know, she's on my team, and I have to tell you, I'm like really disappointed in her. And if I was just using Strava right now and I didn't ever bother to look, I wouldn't know to send Whitney mean messages. So if you haven't done a challenge and used the RunSignup system, it's very attractive to say, hey, just integrate with Strava and Map My Run and any other system that comes up. But once you do one and you realize how much of the customer service you're giving up. So just to give you an example of why you don't want to integrate with Strava. So let's say tomorrow Apple comes out with an update for your phone, and the app company you're working with did not do whatever Apple wanted. Now all of those people's mileage is not logged, and in 2 weeks when they figure out that that's not logged, you have thousands of people who didn't have their activity logged, and you had no idea. So you really lose control of that, and that's essentially the people that have done these large challenges have realized you want to control as much of that as possible and not outsource that to these other companies.
Is there any fee if you put together a free challenge, or for that matter, any free event?
There's no fee for free events. So if it's a free race or a free challenge, there is no fee for using that.
If you have a challenge that has, you know, something other than moving forward, like reading books or push-ups, et cetera, is it possible to get a graphic other than the map to move on?
So there isn't a anything like on the individual results page, but if you remember the American Cancer example where it has a little bar that's moving across the screen, you can actually upload your own custom image that would show up on the cover page of your RunSignup site. That could be your own custom image. So let's say, you know, we wanted to do a book reading competition, a summer book reading competition. You could put a like a picture of say like a classic looking library where there's, you know, thousands and thousands of books, and the goal is to say read 1,000 books this summer for you know, the school. You could actually have the book background, and then the icon would be moving across as you get to 1,000 books. So it wouldn't be on the individual page, but they could log their activity and see how many books they've read, see where they are on the leaderboard, but then there would also be that aggregate leaderboard on the cover page.
We have more information that we want to put on our website than we can fit into a cover page component because they have character limits. What's the best way to include that on the website then?
Yeah, so we didn't talk about this today, but the within the RunSignup website capability is there's custom content. So custom content are what you would call pages on a website. So you would add as much custom content as you need, and then those also can be icons on the cover page. So a good example would be if you have courses and you might want to have, let's say you have 5 courses. You might put in a button that's courses, and then you could pick the 5K course, the 10K course, the 15K course, etc. All those would be custom content that you would add to your RunSignup race page. And you also can then customize the navigation on your RunSignup page of where you want that to live on the menu of your site. So you don't have to put all of your content on the cover page. You can, build the sub pages and have the navigation the way you like it.
Okay. When you talk about the donation discount feature, are registrants alerted prior to checkout that they can receive the discount if they donate?
Yes. So in the donation step, you can actually alert participants/donors of the opportunity of the discount, and then that discount clearly shows up as well at the checkout process.
If we use the email pop-up capture, how do we know who to reach back out to and when?
So if you use the email pop-up feature, you have to build a list. And so that list is, you would go into the email marketing system and manage list and call it, email capture list. I think that's what I call mine. And then you can go in there and see, how many people have been captured to that list. And then you can use our email marketing system to send an email to that group.
Can you clarify what white labeling is and if it costs anything?
White labeling is essentially, instead of the email coming from the RunSignup server, the email is coming from your domain. As long as you own the domain, there's no charge from RunSignup to use it. So if you own the domain, you would add a record into your domain, and you can contact your IT person or whoever hosts your domain to add this. And again, we have some great documentation on this, and they would add that. So when the email is coming out of the RunSignup email marketing system, it's actually coming from your verified domain instead of the RunSignup domain.
If I'm switching to a virtual race, is there any need or reason to use a certified timer, or should I just do it all on my own then?
So that's a great question. We have a lot of virtual races coming directly to RunSignup, whereas the majority of our business up before the pandemic has been, going through our certified timers. And so to give you an idea, like in May, we averaged 62 new races a day. My opinion is that a certified timer can bring things to a race that they wouldn't necessarily think of. Many of our certified timers have been in the business for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years and have a lot of connections that can be extremely beneficial to the race. The other thing is that in order to get race joy for your event, you have to work with a certified timer. So if you want to use race joy, and we didn't really cover that much in this presentation, is race joy is our tracking app, and we're going to use that tomorrow morning for the virtual run. So if you want participants to have an app where they can go out and run a 10K on their own and automatically have their results submitted, you have to work through a certified timer. The other thing that's really important to remember, and I don't want to be, I want to make sure that I'm very forceful on this, is that our races need timers and timers need races. And so if races aren't working with timers and timers don't have any business this year, we need timers to be around next year in order for us to have races. And so I've reminded a number of races who have kind of come to us directly. It's like, well, I'd love timers to be able to be supported in this process because they are willing to do the work to help you be successful. And there's a lot of different things they can do, from being your fulfillment partner to providing race joy to chasing down questions or issues that you have within the RunSignup system or just in general with the race. A lot of people approach virtual races as like, oh, this is super simple, and it can be. But we have virtual races that have had nearly 30,000 participants. If you think dealing with 30,000 people is simple, like, good luck. Like, it's very complicated. So I would highly recommend at least having a discussion with a certified timer to find out what they could do to help you with your race, because you need to differentiate your race. Like, if your race is truly, hey, we're just going to send somebody a bib or just a t-shirt, I'm not sure how sustainable that's going to be.
For custom bibs, the digital bibs, do you have more than one option for how those look?
Yes. So we, and Johanna, correct me if you're wrong, do we have several different templates?
Yes.
I haven't clicked on that. Okay, yeah. So we do have several different templates to choose from.
And you can also completely customize your own.
Yep.
Can corrals be used for trial starts to have people input their estimated finish time? For example, for a swim in a triathlon, can we use that to line them up to limit the potential of passing?
Yeah, so that's a great point, is that corrals can be more open-ended, where we are asking for estimated finish time. And then you can actually use our corral builder tool to create a, to this person's point, a situation where hopefully there is not passing. So you can then line them up by estimated swim start time and then assign start times based off of that.
Do you know when milestones will be released for challenges?
That's a Bob question.
That will come by middle of July. You'll start to see all the milestone stuff, and it'll continue probably through the end of July with additional features, because there's a lot of stuff that we can do on that. We can have all sorts of different notifications get triggered and lots of different templates that get sent out with those notifications and so forth. So, and then, there's this idea that, you might change and gamify things quite a bit. So you'll have different badges appearing in different places and potentially different maps showing as you get from, one part of the challenge to the next part of the challenge. And those might not be just necessarily Google Maps and stuff. So there's an endless amount of development to do on this. It's really, really fun and cool.
What about runner placement and challenges? We really want it to be the person who finishes first, but it sorts by distance and time.
There's different options within the challenge software of how you want things to be filtered. So there's different options for, do you want it to be filtered by distance and lowest time and what the tiebreaker is for that. So that's something that you can actually configure within the challenge platform.
So just to add on to that in terms of futures, one of the things that we're looking at is without too much complexity, allow things like conversions to happen, right? So maybe 60 miles on a cycle might be worth 10 miles on a bike, might be worth 2 miles in the water or something like that. So you could convert those to some sort of like a point system and then rank people based on those points. So there's some thought that we're giving to that, and that's probably something that we'll come out with by, I don't know, mid to late summer.
How big of a mailing list can you upload into the system for email marketing?
I've had this question more than once. I would say the largest list that I'd like to see is 50,000 people. We can do a little bit, we can do more than that. I question validity at that point sometimes. If your list comes from MailChimp and you have, 70,000 people, great. If your list doesn't come from MailChimp or Constant Contact or one of the other reputable email providers, I'm a little cautious about it, because if you send out a large email and it's not a verified list, we may have to suspend your ability to send emails out. In general, I would say 99.9% of all people, that's not what they're wondering about. Like, hey, I have a list of 2,000 people. But if you get super large lists and they're not, validated lists, we do have a score that we are put on how good of an email sender we are. And so if someone abuses that, that can affect everyone. And so we may have to suspend that person's ability to send email. So make sure that you understand where you got the list from. Like if a client hands you a list, ask them where it came from. Find out if it's real, because you don't want to get into that situation where you have to explain where that email list came from.
Kind of piggybacking off of your earlier question about testing, when you're putting together the email and text message notifications specifically for virtual results, how do you preview what those messages look like with the replacement tags?
So the emails are pretty easy to test. There actually is a preview email send. The text messaging is a good question. You can see what the text message says, and also if you sign up for your event before you open registration to the general public, you actually can schedule all that stuff to be sent to yourself before it opens. So then you would just need to adjust the date. The only one that gives me any pause is the actual text messaging. I understand why somebody would want to test that. And what I might do in that situation is actually create a separate race for myself, my team, my charity partners, whomever, and say, hey guys, I want you to go through and try registering on this test event to make sure everybody goes through that full process. Like if I really wanted to go through everything, because what I have done myself is done this stuff and then forget to move a date. So just be a little careful if you're moving things around on dates, because you can get to the situation where you forgot to update the text message date. And then when people register for your event, they never get the text message. But otherwise, like absolutely go through and test everything else. The email preview capability is all there. It's just the text messaging in particular that is a little bit more difficult to test.
Can you include a picture when someone is submitting their virtual results?
Not yet. That is on the hot development list, and that is something that we're looking to get out this summer as well. I'm super excited about that because, you know, it can be selfies and stuff like that, but it also can be a way for people to take pictures of their Garmin, their Timex, their Strava, whatever. Hopefully people take a picture from the top of a mountain, you know, all sorts of fun stuff like that. Like it really opens things up and allows users to have their own photo albums as well. And we actually have a developer assigned and working on photos now.
He had said that he was going to do it this week, but I'm not sure it's going to make it out this week. Might be next week.
Will that photo feature be interactive so that people can upload photos, comment on photos, anything like that?
Yeah, so what you'll be able to do as a participant, you'll be able to upload photos when you're, you know, inputting your results, or you're inputting a log for a challenge. So you'd be able to put up multiple photos per day if you wanted to do in the challenge. And then also in the general photos, you know, area of a race website, you'll see those photos as well. So those will appear for everybody to see.
I think that is all that I see right now. Whitney, do you have anything that I have missed, or is Brian actually done early for once?
I apologize if I did not hear this one, but did you ask the certified timers question?
No, I did not see that. Go ahead.
Okay. Are certified timers charging less for timing a virtual race, assuming their assistance is identical except for the virtual timing instead of in-person timing? What would be an expected go-to rate?
So that's a question I can't necessarily answer. I can tell you that we had a breakout with timers yesterday, and most timers, I'm not going to say every single timer, is absolutely willing to find a way to work with you. The easiest way to get really good rate from a timer is allow them to try to, you know, source multiple services for you, meaning like, hey, we'll supply RaceJoy, we'll manage our virtual results. And you'll say, hey, well, I can do that. Well, absolutely you can, but like the devil's in the details on this stuff. If they can help you understand our referral program because you didn't know anything about that, that's the type of value-added service that a timer who spent time and energy researching and studying RunSignup and using it themselves, that you can get from that. But specifically what a timer would charge for you know, managing virtual results in RaceJoy, I can't really say. It would really depend. I do know that timers are absolutely willing to work with races to figure out ways to help keep those customers on for this year, because many timers, as you guys probably have heard from many races, are just canceling this year. So if you're willing to continue on, even with a virtual raise, they want to maintain that relationship with you and find ways to help you be successful.
All right. I think that is it. That was a lot of great questions throughout this. There's a lot of detail that Brian couldn't get to, but there's also a bunch of other sessions today and tomorrow. We'll start back up at 1 o'clock Eastern today to go into like a little bit more detail, especially on things like challenges and virtual races, where Brian kind of flew through things to give you an idea of what to expect.
Hey, Johanna,
Absolutely.
can you give people an expectation of when the slides will be available and when this recording will be available?
Yes, everything for all sessions will be sent out on Friday. We're going to let everything get wrapped up, and then we'll send everything out as one group on Friday.
Well, great. And Johanna, we finished early this time because you guys gave me more time. I used to only get 50 minutes. So this time we have more time. So yeah. Thank you guys so much for your participation and asking all the great questions. And we really appreciate you guys taking time and investing more in learning about RunSignup. See you guys at 1 o'clock.